I ever.
Yeah, I went too far. Where are we at? So this is after.
Okay.
I wonder
Or
how
it's
many
just
there.
in case. All right. We are back for session 4.
Woo!
We are back for session 4. It's gonna
Hey
be
y'all.
good. It's gonna be good again tonight. All right. We we've been kind of trying to determine which direction we're gonna go in tonight. So we're just gonna shoot from the hip. Um, Hopefully you guys will come on in the room. And for those of you who will watch the replay, definitely listen attentively. You may have to rewind it and listen to it again. But Mr. Jahmal Bazil is with me again tonight for Tuesday Motivation and Conversation. So Jahmal, this is
Yes.
our 4th session. It's been a good series. What do you think so far?
Yes.
You got the
I
new
have.
release of the engineered Muse. You got the debut happening this Saturday.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Are you
It is.
excited?
I am absolutely excited. It's been hard to sleep the last couple of days, because
I bet. I
it's
bet.
like first day of school vibes that I'm feeling right now. Um,
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, listen, it's been an amazing January. I think it was so befitting to just, kick off starting about talking about relationships with the top of the year. There are so many different things going on, and
right.
relationships um are the currency, for
Yes,
business,
ma'am.
for, so many things that we do, it requires relationships, whether that's,
Life.
yeah, period. So holistically, we have to have relationships, and we want to make sure that our relationships are healthy and they're in good standing. So definitely, it's been an amazing ride. Last week, wow, last week. Hey Tiffany, what's up? You back in the house?
You gotta
Listen,
love
you
that.
guys share this with somebody else. Invite them to the conversation tonight. It's gonna be good again. Good. It's gonna be good again. But last week, oh my God, last week was, hmm,
Yes.
if I
Last
am
week was
gone.
everything.
So last week you have to go back and watch the replay if you weren't in the room, or if you haven't watched the replay from session 3. Jahmal shared one of the entries from his writings. If I am gone, O-M to the G. It was a conversation.
Spicy, a bit spicy.
Super spicy. It was super spicy. Um, and so we got into some other things. And so Jamal's going to share one or two excerpts tonight as well.
Yeah.
But I want to kind of kick off Jamal tonight, just kind of talking about this whole thing of we were having a pre session conversation about the importance of relationships, and how it's important how we start them, because it's also important how we end them. And
Yes.
if we start them right, depending, especially when we talk about romantic relationships. So, of course, you've had relationships, and, relationships didn't work out. I've been married, the marriage didn't work out, so I'm divorced. However, what we were talking about is, I started that relationship began as a friendship.
Right.
And
Right.
because the friendship was so strong, even though there were mountains and valleys in the relationship, we were able to, at some point get to um, an even plane, and we were able to walk back in friendship again. And
Yeah.
so it took work, it took time. But the blessing is that it got back to a healthy place where, we were able to communicate, and we were able to still be friends, even though that's not, a romantic
Yeah.
relationship anymore. The friendship was still at the root
Right.
of the
Yeah.
relationship. And so
Right.
that's so very important. And
Yes,
so we
ma'am.
were kind of talking about that. And even with, dating, how, and I've just never been, I guess, I didn't do a lot of dating before getting married. And I was married for
Mm.
almost 20 years. And I haven't done a lot of dating since then
Yeah.
because I don't know, the tolerance for the toxicity that a lot of people bring to relationships is just
Yeah.
not something I want to spend the time dealing with unnecessarily. So, I would say let's just kind of, kick it off
Oh,
there. And that, I
please.
think goes right into, the conversation we were having. So what say you?
So I love that you said that. One of the things I think people fall in love with the best version of each other,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So we love the good parts about us, but we don't consider that this person, this beautiful woman, or in your case, this beautiful man, all this great stuff, there's also a dark side.
Yeah.
There's some things that are not favorable, and it's we expect, this perfect person always all the time, and then we don't give them the opportunity to be humans, right?
Hmm.
We
Hmm.
expect them to always maintain and be this loving and uplifting. And sometimes you get down, sometimes you get
Hmm.
depressed, sometimes you don't feel valued, and sometimes it's like, I don't want to get up and cook you breakfast, or what happens when I don't feel like getting you flowers or telling you you're beautiful? If
Hmm.
that just breaks you down, there's something's not right there, right? You have to know
Yeah.
that for yourself, and you
Hmm.
have to be able to recognize, hey, my wife, my husband, my girlfriend, my boyfriend needs me in a different capacity. So
Sure.
I can't demand this constant attention and,
Yeah.
just praise, and that's not life.
Hmm.
That's not reality.
Yeah. Goes back to capacity.
I'll get right back to capacity, right?
Right back to
Um,
capacity.
and I love that you said, we go back to this relationship. And what happens a lot of times, we have something in common.
Hmm.
So I I haven't dated a lot of people,
Hmm.
right? So I have not been in relationship with a lot of people. Now I'll go out and eat dinner with anybody because I
Hmm.
love food and I love learning. I love talking to
Yeah.
people and hearing what they think,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
but as far as a relationship, like, we are in this relationship, we're learning each other. I haven't had many of those at all,
Hmm.
right? And so, like you, even now, I don't, I'll meet people, I'll get to know them, I'll talk and all that, but I haven't really been out there. I think what happens for a lot of people is they date so many people, like they're out there constantly with different people. You don't have time to digest and learn yourself or the other person. Like, are you assessing, okay,
Hmm.
I like this or I don't like this?
Right, right. Do you
Or
really know what it is that you
right,
want, or are you passing the time to not be by yourself, or you're trying to avoid
right,
loneliness, right?
right.
And so oftentimes in those situations, Jamal, what happens is that we don't learn who we are. We do not know what it is that we want
Mhm.
because we've not spent enough time with ourselves
Or
to
or
really,
even mm, or even assessing when we
yeah.
do go out dates, right? And we
Hmm.
see something in someone that we really like, or we're like, what can I tolerate? What can I not tolerate? Right? Like, this
Hmm.
person smacks when they choose. If that drives you crazy, you have to assess those interactions. And a lot of times we
Hmm.
don't, because we're like, well, at least I'm not alone. Or, you
Uh-huh.
know, I had a great time here, but the whole time you were offended because of something else that they did, but you just
Yeah,
suppressed it.
yeah, yeah. Because we all have flaws, faults, and failures, right?
Yes, ma'am.
We all have them. And to some degree, to the point, you have to be in real good relationship with yourself,
Yeah.
self-awareness, so that
Hmm.
number one, what it is that you desire, and what it
Yes.
is, to your point, you can tolerate. What's your capacity for certain things, right? you have to know your capacity, and you have to be able to determine the capacity of the other
Yes.
individual. And oftentimes we don't slow down long enough
No, 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 no,
to
no, no.
assess that, to your point. And
Yeah.
so that is definitely a super good point. So, friendships are, and I know that you spent quite a few pages, in the project on friendships as well. And
Yes.
we talked about the importance of friendships and relationships. And so, this is important in a lot of different ways. And I was in a group earlier today, and the topic was beyond betrayal, right?
Mm.
And what did you learn beyond the betrayal of a person
Yeah.
who may have been close to you, a friend, or whatever the case may have been?
Yeah.
One person was at this point where they had moved on, they learned XYZ. Of
Mm.
course, I'm always, my position now is that I learned what capacity really is beyond the
Yes.
betrayal. And so that's huge for me now.
Yeah.
But then there was one person that said, I'm not there yet, right?
Mhm.
I hadn't gotten I hadn't gotten over the the betrayal. And so I'm trying to get there, right? And so
That's real.
relationships. And then there was one person who indicated they had, forgiven the individual, and the individual had been able to then come back into their life and be an intricate part of their life. And so we have so many different variations, right?
Hmm.
And we start at one level, but how do we maintain those friendships,
Yeah.
right? How do they
Yeah.
stay healthy, and how do they stay whole, and how do they remain wholesome through the peaks and the valleys? Because at the end of the day, there are going to be disagreements, right? There are going to be
Yes.
things that are going to
Yes.
occur. So, I see you have a thought. Let's roll it.
Yeah. So even with that, we also need to recognize that all friends aren't forever.
Yeah.
That's the reality.
Some
You outgrow
seasons.
some people, but some people, they hold on to people. Well, I've known her for 20 years, and for 20
Mm-hmm.
years, this
There you go.
parachute has been holding you back from progressing
Yes.
and accelerating,
Yes.
right?
Seasons,
And
reasons, lifetime. Yeah.
well, she's been my friend for okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you gotta let people go, and we
Mm-hmm.
hold on because that is the comfort. And I was listening to Darius Daniels. It's part of the It's Up series. He
Mm-hmm.
said something that, oh man, that thing hit me. So PD is PD.
Yeah.
So yeah,
PD is PD. Yeah.
but he said, you become who you're around,
Yeah.
right? So
Mm-hmm.
so we have friends, but every once in a while, you gotta look and take inventory and say, do I want to become
Mm-hmm.
these people?
Yeah.
Because your friends, you give them access to your life, you give them access to
Mm-hmm.
your heart, your mind, your soul. So
Yeah.
you have to constantly be assessing their lives
Mm-hmm.
because their fruit you're going to find growing on your tree
Yeah.
if you're not careful, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
so,
And you're
yeah.
right, friendships have to have placement, right? So I have some friends, one in particular been friends for, oh my God, 30 plus years. We don't talk every day, but when we talk, it's like we talked yesterday,
Yeah.
right? I have another friend, a best friend that we talk pretty much every day, right? And then I have another friend that it's occasional, maybe every few days, right?
Mm.
All of those relationships are different.
Yes. Yes.
Totally different, totally different, um, vibes,
Mm.
totally different personalities, totally different capacities. Um,
Requirements.
oh, everything about these are different. Totally. Night, day, over yonder across the pond.
Yes.
That's
Amen, Tiff. Amen, Tiff.
what you said. Holding on beyond designated reason. Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so you have to your point, you really have to be mindful of, misguided expectations when it comes to
Yes.
relationships and friendships, because oftentimes we expect certain things. We expect the capacities to be the same in certain relationships where that's different.
Yes.
They're a la carte. Friendships are a la carte, right?
And so with that, right? That's so perfect. When you think about it too, I I struggle with this, and I make fun of it every time. And I'm sorry, ladies, this is a generic statement. When
Okay.
I hear most women
Yeah.
that I hear, oh yeah, my best friend and my other best friend and my other best friend, and I'm like, just based on the definition of best, I just feel like best should be like singular. You can't have 25 best friends. And when you start talking about every relationship requires some energy, some investment, if your friend circle is so large, what quality are they receiving from you, really?
Very
And
little.
what are you really receiving from them? Because
Hmm.
spreading yourself that thin, I never really understood it, you know? And
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
I think we need to be careful and shout out PD's book, uh, Relational Intelligence. Like
Intelligence. Hmm.
there are friends and then there are acquaintances,
Absolutely.
right? Like
Hmm.
everybody you meet that smile with you and you have lunch or dinner with isn't a friend, right?
Absolutely.
There's a
Absolutely.
difference. Like Jesus had 12 disciples, and then he
They all one
had
Lord.
then he had the guys that was with him. You know, the
Yeah,
let's
right.
go to this mountaintop right quick so you can
Hmm.
see me manifest myself. So
Yeah.
I think we need to be a little bit more intentional, a little bit more deliberate,
Absolutely.
um,
Absolutely.
with saying, okay, my friends, they know, they know, okay, this is what Jahmal is passionate about. They know some of the hurts, they know some of the pains, they know some of the weaknesses, so they can snatch me up when I'm about
Hmm.
to go over to the dark side. I'm like, whoa, Jay, no, no, stay away from that one. Them
Mm.
dimples got you mesmerized, buddy. Like,
You and these dimples.
man,
So,
dimples.
with that being said, let's talk about this right quick before you read this first.
Okay,
Friend
okay.
friend zone. How do you feel about friend zone?
Woo! 4 quarters versus 100 pennies. Oh man,
How do
I
you
like
feel
that
about
too.
friend zones?
The friend zone. So, mm, I wrote about this. I think I touched on this a little bit. The friend zone is a dangerous. It's like the friend zone to me is like the Twilight Zone, right?
Okay.
It is an unknown reality that you have to deal with. I think it takes a mature person, again, the assessment, right? Recognize when you have been friend zoned.
Okay. So let's unpack friend zone.
Okay.
Let's unpack this.
Let's set some parameters
You with
around
you
friend
with
zone.
you with me, Tim? You with me? Let's unpack this friend zone. So why? Because here again, most in general,
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
it's the fellas that have a problem with the friend zone. Why is that?
Ye-
Tell me your perspective from the male perspective. What is it about the friend zone that is, you know, it's like
So,
y'all have
so
this thing about being placed in the friend zone
I think guys that
unaware.
have an issue with the friend zone
Hmm.
is because you're starting off with the wrong motive off jump, right? Because we talked about this. You need to be friends first, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So the friend zone is just a normal step in the process. But when you have ulterior motives or you just want to skip to relationship before friendship, then you have a problem with the friend zone because I don't want to
Hmm.
wait for this thing that's
Hmm.
good. I'm
Hmm.
not even looking at myself and saying, okay, does this woman fit where I'm going with my life? I just want the fruit.
Hmm.
I don't want to till the ground.
Uh-huh.
I don't want to
Uh-huh.
plant the seed. I don't want to wait.
So, what you're confirming for us ladies is that when we run into or encounter a situation where the friend zone is like X and there is tension and there is anxiousness and all of this about the friend zone, that should be a warning sign to us that we should not
100%.
we should not ooze into, something quote unquote thinking that it's going to be something different, because this is just a lure. And when a person, gets real antsy about this whole thing, and I've seen it so many times, it's like
Yeah.
you can't, we just met. So that's all
So
we can be is
so
friends
I
for
mean
now, because I don't
I
even know
mean
what I'm dealing with or working with.
why can't we hang out, man? I mean, like you like me and I like you, and all
Absolutely.
those little statements to me, it's like, bro, first of all, you're not invoking a
Absolutely, Tim.
sense of
Hmm.
security and
Yeah,
trust.
yeah, yeah. Natural
You're
progression. It's
yeah,
a natural progression of
let it
relationships.
flow.
Yeah, and it should. And so women, don't be afraid to say, well, hey, if that doesn't work for you, I ain't mad, I'm good, then this just ain't gonna work. Because
So
at the end of the day, if you cannot establish a relationship, as a progression to a
sure, yes.
potential, this is all
You
we're talking about, is
you running
potential
too
relationship,
fast.
then
Yeah.
it's too much going on too fast, too early.
You ain't got no brakes. You just driving. You
Cool,
just
cool,
driving.
cool, cool, cool.
So here's a consideration regarding the friend zone.
Hmm.
And I will say this for the women. This is in the book. Uh, it's written in such a way to really kind of provoke the female thought. So be careful how you utilize the friend zone. Be careful how you treat someone, um, especially when you're aware that they're really into you, right?
Hmm.
Because even if a guy wants to go through the natural progression, right? Sometimes it's just like, man, I really like this girl. You got to be
Hmm.
real careful with that. You got to manage that well, because what could happen is like you just play him off and you end up stringing him along. He's reliable, he's consistent, he's all these great things. And it's like, well, these are the guys that I'm really interested in don't do this stuff. They're not consistent, they're not reliable. So
Hmm.
let me keep them along. And I write
Hmm.
about this in the book because here's what happens. That good man, that reliable guy, if you don't like him like that, and most women will say, "Oh, you're such a great friend," and all that stuff. What happens is sometimes the other extreme, okay, now I'm sick of this because I keep
Hmm.
seeing this girl that I really like dating these type of guys, right?
Hmm.
So I'm gonna
Hmm.
become these type of guys. The
Hmm.
difference is that friend zone guy is way more dangerous than they are. Because
hmm
here's one thing that every woman on the planet does. They talk.
hmm
So I'm the nice guy, right? Oh yeah, Jay helped me with my car. He's this. Yeah, he really looked out for me. He even watched the kids when I went out on this date. Guys actually do that, right? He does this, he does this. So they're telling all their friends. So
hmm
what happens when Jay gets to the point where he's frustrated because you keep dating all these idiots in his mind,
hmm
right? You're dating these
hmm
idiots. Well, I'm
hmm
gonna emulate them. Here's the difference. Jay is in the circle. All the
hmm
women trust Jay.
hmm
So now I could take her out to eat, wine and dine. I'm starting to learn the lingo. I'm starting to learn some of the mannerisms. And now
hmm
she's like, oh, he got game. Then
hmm
Jay gets you into bed,
hmm
still treats you like a queen, right? Because he's still
hmm
Jay. And then,
hmm
all right, move on to the next one. And the whole time you're
hmm
like, oh, he's so great. He's so great.
hmm
But now he getting
hmm
them cheeks for free.
hmm
He is more
hmm
dangerous because he has established the trust and the
Yep.
familiarity. And
hmm
so you got to handle that friend
Yep.
zone. And that's on the guys too, right?
Very careful, very
Be
carefully.
mindful of what's going on because frustration causes us to act outside of what we
Absolutely.
are and what we
hmm
know.
And whether you want to or not, that frustration when you have a door that's
Oh,
open,
it'll
frustration will speak loudly.
real quick.
It
And
will speak
listen,
loud, quick, and fast. And it's like, okay, this is the shoe in, I'm gonna take it.
when
Right?
you're that, mm, I'm sorry, because
No,
my brain,
no.
when you're that guy, when you're that guy that women are comfortable around and they trust and all that, they're not as guarded, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
they stop by the house, y'all, yeah, we're gonna go to dinner, meet up with someone, and oh yeah, I'm gonna just take a shower, and you just walking around in a towel like do do do. Like this man ain't a man
Right.
with the same urges and
Too
eyesight.
comfortable. Yeah, too
You
comfortable.
get
Take it for granted.
because it's like, oh,
And hmm
that's just
that's just
Mark.
so and so. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Mark is sitting over there struggling.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't
But
ever want to do that around somebody who's struggling or who's frustrated. So this is the whole thing about, relationship frustrations, because there are friendships that become frustrated friendships
yes,
because there's too much sharing. And here again, the more you share, the more intimate you become. There's no sex, there's none of that going on, but the more you share, the more intimate you become, the more trust is built. All of these layers are building, right? And so here again, your pores are open, right? Your relational
of
pores are
course,
open
it's
on
just
both
soaking up,
sides.
just
Yeah, and it's just
osmosis.
you know
Mm.
it's pulling in everything.
And
So
and so right, even with that, right? So right there, you're soaking up, and the frustration now has taken over the brain, and
yeah,
so you end up going across a line or saying something or doing whatever, and it's like, oh, I'm relieved. But then there's the, I
but
don't
are
really
you
like this
really?
person. Right. I don't really like this person like that.
Yeah,
I like them as a friend, but now that I've crossed whatever line, it's like, mm.
it sets another frame of frustrations.
And then
So with
friendship breaks apart.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And so, yeah, you got a whole nother issue on your hand.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
Jamal's going to share another one
Oh,
of his excerpts, and so he's going to get ready and gear that up. While he's doing that, here again, I want to remind you to number one, hit your share and just share this with somebody. Invite them into the conversation. We still have a little time left. We're finna chat a little bit. He's going to share another one of his excerpts from his writing, his new project, Engineered Muse, and we're going to unpack it a little bit. Last week's was a doozy. If I Am Gone. Oh my goodness, it was good. You got to go back and watch that one. But I wanted to just say, definitely thanks to those of you who are joining us tonight. I know
yes.
you're not in the chat, but you're there. Tiff's holding us down, so y'all can't let
Oh,
Tiffany hold us down by herself. So definitely, once this is read, this reading, definitely chime in and let us know your thoughts. Okay. All right. So give it to us.
all right. Here we go. The first rule. The first rule of life is love. When things ought to fall apart and fall from the sky, love keeps it stitched, balanced, lifted. When things are a never-ending desert and all is dense and arid, love is a cool sip of wine, like a kiss across the lips. When a surety becomes an improbability and hope is eviscerated, love is a soothing salve, a regenerative balm. When all is given, yet not appreciated, nor reciprocated, love is a perpetual generator, sustaining and storing throughout. When reality is a vacuum and vitality ebbs, love is the morning dew on a wilderness meadow. When love is unfathomable and there remains only scars and pain, and the shock with every memory that never seems to wane, and distrust accrued becomes hate and fear imbued in a life, and yet love, whether implemented or accepted, is the institution that redeems all, erases all, weakens all, strengthens all, progenitor of life, both finite and everlasting. And the greatest of these is love.
Wow. Now, first question. What made you write this one and when?
this one, this one was from way back. Was going through some things. Just family. My family has been through quite a bit, and I looked at my mom one day. My mom is one of those people, man. we went through some stuff, and my mom, no matter what, always treat people with respect, always willing to give. And I'm like, hold, we got nothing to give, but you still giving, right?
Yeah.
And so I just thought about the life that I experienced as a kid. We saw a lot that most kids don't see. And
Mm-hmm.
so through it all, man, my mom just persevered. And,
Yeah.
my family isn't like the hug family. There wasn't a whole I love you, but in everything that she did, just diligent, diligent,
Mm-hmm.
diligent,
Mm-hmm.
always working. And so this is the best way I could sum up what I saw.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what really inspired this poem. And the
Okay.
first rule,
Yeah.
first rule.
Yeah. So of course I got a couple of questions, but I want to ask those who are with us live tonight if there was a line in this poem that this rendering that stuck out to you. Um, tell us about it in the chat. Tell us about it in the chat. I'm gonna ask about this line. Um, this one line, and it kind of stuck out to me. And it's the one when things ought to fall apart and fall from the sky. Love keeps it stitched, balanced, lifted. So what was this? Was this the family structure? What was this about? Because we know that here again, I'll share this piece. One of the things when I was going through the tumultuous times of
Mhm.
my marriage and the valleys, right? And everybody can always give you advice on what you should do
Oh
and
yeah, 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 yeah.
how
Yeah.
that should go. And this was like,
The
what
experts.
year? Yeah, year seven, something like that, right?
Mhm.
And how can you da 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 when they da 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 da. And so one of my perspectives, and even at a young age, I was 20s, late 20s, or whatever the case may have been. One of the things I knew for certain was that the love of God was so strong, and that was a love that he loved us before we even knew who we were,
Yeah.
to understand what love really meant. And even
Mhm.
after knowing God and really, having or trying to have a relationship with Him or developing a relationship with Him, how many times we screw up, how many times we messed up, how many times we say, God, I'm gonna do X, Y, Z, da 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 da, we didn't do it. And I said, one of the things that I'm, and it's just me. I can't
Right.
speak for anybody else, but I have to exemplify the love of God every day.
Yeah.
And I have to do that good, bad, or indifferent. And so that's how I can love. Now, do I have to maintain a certain posture? Because after a while, enough is enough,
Yeah.
regardless. You can still love a person, but you love them from a distance. But
Mhm.
it was the strength of that perspective about love that kept me in a position of being able to, in spite of, right?
Right.
So that's a strong, I felt like that was a strong statement at that particular time, in life. But then I thought about my children and how it took that to maintain to still feed them and to care for them and to make sure that they were taken care of, they were nurtured, they were
Yeah.
protected, their ears were protected, their hearts were protected, even their eye gates were
Yeah.
protected, to the point
Mm.
there was so much that they never knew. And
Yeah.
so it took love to be able to do that. So when I heard that line, I thought it just took me back to those days. It took me back to that experience. Um, love keeps it stitched. It's like, it's that one piece of clothing that you really, really like, right?
Mhm.
And it's worn. And so it tears somewhat easily, but you take the time to hand stitch it
Stitch
back
it back.
together
Yeah.
and you draw those stitches as tight as you can to mend it to make sure that it holds on a little while longer. So
So I
what
will
was
tell
what was
you.
your perspective there?
So one thing that I've learned about myself, and writing this book kind of reiterated, is that my writing isn't always, I write across time.
Mm,
Does that make sense?
mm,
And
mm-hmm,
so even looking when I wrote this, I saw how this applied to other areas of life. So
Mhm.
my parents, of course, well, they're divorced now, but they were separated for a very, very, very long time. And
Mhm.
so in my mind, it's like I think about marriages, right?
Mhm.
You hit rough patches. I've heard married people say, like sometimes I don't even feel like I love my wife or love my husband,
Mhm.
right? I don't feel the attraction, I don't feel the closeness, but that love, and that's the thing, love isn't a feeling, love is a decision,
Yes.
right? I got a
Mhm.
poem in here
He
called
decided to die
right,
just to, yeah.
right. So, I got a poem in here called Butterflies. It's in the book somewhere, but it's not in the
Mhm.
poem section. And
Mhm.
so you think about it, when I looked at that, I was like, when all else is going wrong, and of course, the growing up, reading the Bible and understanding, like I had a serious problem with Judas. Like,
Mhm.
you gonna sell your boy out for 20
Mhm.
pieces of silver? In my
20.
mind, that was like 20 quarters. So that's in as a kid, I was like 24, that's it.
Mhm.
And then I look at Christ, right? Like, you die for all these people that are spitting at you, beating you
Mhm.
down.
Mhm.
And so that's a different level of, he should have reacted with hate. He should have reacted like, you know what? I'm not dealing with this. And to say, I'm going to accept all of that, all this pain, because I love you that much.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that I have dealt with or can deal with in my life that will
Mhm.
equal that. So in the end, somebody could treat you as bad as they treat you. But
Mhm.
if you keep treating them with respect and
Mhm.
kindness,
Mhm.
eventually they'll convict in themselves. They'll be like, I can't, this doesn't make sense.
Right. Right. It's
Right.
one-sided. Right.
And I see, and I feel like love, it doesn't matter what you're dealing with. Love, man, love is it's a solve, right? It can heal, it can bring back, and
Absolutely.
it doesn't mean you come back to the same capacity, right? Or the same intimacy of the relationship, but you can at least come back and say, hey, this is what I did wrong, and I
Mhm.
apologize for that.
Mhm.
Please forgive me.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I want
Yeah.
to do better, right? Love,
Mhm.
you can't learn from your mistakes without love.
Absolutely. 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 Absolutely, Tiff. Absolutely. Unconditionally. And I think we have, oh my God, it's one of the things that we have such a hard time
Yeah.
doing, and that is forgiving, right?
Yes. That's in there
Um,
too.
oh my God, we have such a hard time forgiving, not realizing that it diseases us when we don't.
Yeah.
Because when we can't forgive, we're harboring feelings, emotions that are they're going somewhere in our bodies. That those emotions they're going somewhere, they're living somewhere, they're being housed somewhere in our bodies. And when we cannot forgive and when we cannot love, and we can't get past certain things, yes, things hurt. They do. But at the end of the day, my God is greater. My God is stronger, you know. And it's one of those things that, how much control am I going to give an individual over me?
Ah, yeah.
Because that's what that is.
And so many people sit and suffer and lose sleep, their hair is falling out. And this person
Yes.
that supposedly wronged you, half the time they're not even aware of it.
And they go
And
on about their
they
life because it's
they're
like,
living their best life. And it's like,
yes, got their feet up somewhere.
and a part of it is because we we attribute, I must use three words: joy, happiness, and peace to people.
Hmm. Yeah.
We give people that power. Like,
Hmm.
when I hear people say, you complete me. No, you don't.
Mm-mm.
I'm already complete. You just you are a wonderful, tasty garnishment that comes along with me. If anything, you don't complete me. I don't have
Mm-hmm.
a better half. I'm a
Yeah.
whole,
Mm-hmm.
and you're a whole. And when we get married, the Paul talks about this. It
We
is
hold
only
together.
through it's through this is a spiritual complexity. We
Mm-hmm.
become one.
One,
That's it.
one, one. We're whole
I've never
together.
been a half. I have
You
never
know,
been a half.
and so to Tiff's point, her statement, what about these sandpaper people? It's just like, our
Mm,
my parents and their parents, they didn't express, very few did I see express love, right?
yeah.
Um, affection, or even say I love you. They didn't use the word. I'm like, what we doing? How does this work?
Yeah.
Right? And it was amazing because, to the point, love is so powerful. Oh my God. And because I didn't hear that growing up, I made it a point
Yes.
to say to my children, and my grandchildren especially, but I made it a point to say to my children. And so we started this, when we talk, we hang up, love you, when we're leaving each other's presence, there's a hug, when we meet, there's a hug, there's love you. And so I started that same um, process with my mother. And so when I initially started that, because of course I had lived near her for so long, and then once I moved away, I was more intentional about calling her when she was living on a daily basis. And so when I first started, hang on, it's okay. Well, mom, love you. I'll talk to you, talk to you tomorrow, or whatever the case may be. Okay, there was
Mm-hmm.
no
Yeah.
reciprocation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
After a while, out of the blue one day, love you too, And so then she began to initiate it. And it's so amazing. I just kept doing it. And I would say that, I call my mom a gentle bulldog because she was fun, but at the end of the day, she's going to love on you. She's going to make sure you ate good, make sure things were done
Ooh.
and handled appropriate, all of that, you know. And I think it was because she didn't get it. She didn't know how to give it. Right.
So you
And
convicted me right now.
yeah. And
You
so
convicted
it's
me.
it's one of those things where you just have to keep sharing the
Yeah.
love, and you have to keep saying it, right? And I even do it with babies, because sometimes they don't really know. It depends on, what the environment is or what they
Mm-hmm.
come out
Mm-hmm.
of.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be standoffish for a little bit.
Yeah.
And eventually they warm up, you know.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing with her. And eventually she got to that place where, she would beat me. All right, love you, baby, da 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 da.
Mm.
And I would just smile sometimes. I said, okay, love you too, mom. Because I remember the day when she was just,
Yeah.
it was like, you talking about sandpaper. It was probably like bricks, to
Yeah.
just like, it was
So
tough.
and it is hard to go. So from my perspective, right? Like as a man,
Yeah,
growing up in the islands, man, we had a house full of dudes,
yeah.
five boys and one girl.
Oh,
Like I
wow.
think
Rough.
my brothers and I still struggle. Like we don't say, like my sister sometimes will be like, okay, love you, and it's my sister. I have to say it back. Like she's the only girl. Like
Yeah.
my sister is the most spoiled woman on the planet. Um, but it's still hard. But what's funny is like the kids that I dealt with in the nursery and like kids that I mentee or excuse me, mentor, it's like, hey, love you, man, or love
Yeah.
you. You know, the
Yeah.
babies I hug, my nieces and my nephew, oh, they'll tell you. It's all kisses all day. Like,
Yeah.
and so it's kind of strange because it wasn't a norm with these people, but like you, it's like I know this is a necessary thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
To say it, to
Mm-hmm.
show it,
Mm-hmm.
so that
Mm-hmm.
they understand that there's nothing more powerful in the universe than love.
And it's nothing worse than wanting to receive something that you assume a person knows you desire.
Yeah.
And if it's not
Ooh.
verbalized, right?
Mm,
So if I don't verbalize it to you, you don't know I have the capacity to give it. And if you
mm.
don't verbalize it to me, I don't know you have the desire to receive it.
And then it's like we settle in these dreary lives
Yeah.
where, well, he's still here, so he must love me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, again, we talked about this, I think the first part. Like, I look at a lot of marriages, and I'm gonna talk about the church because that the church should be the standard bearers. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
these marriages are unattractive because you don't see the love.
You
You don't
don't.
see it. You
You
don't
don't. Yeah. You don't see hand holding. You don't see the outward
listen.
affection. You it's just a whole lot. You just don't. You just don't see.
So
And I would
yeah,
agree. We have to do a better job at displaying, you know, and that's why I think relationships are so toxic because
mhm,
we haven't displayed them in a loving way.
yeah,
We haven't, because He created marriage, love, procreation, all of that. God created it to be good.
yes,
But we have so distorted it and
distorted
made
it.
it such
Yeah.
a thing that is so taboo and off and down.
So
And here again, even in relationships, one's waiting on the other one to say I love you first or love you or whatever first.
yeah,
And
but
so, and then it's a measuring stick for, I don't know, but it's just all
so
this craziness.
love has been so misused and abused.
Yeah.
This just popped in my head, right? One of the biggest problems with relationships is that we we have transformed the uh the brevity of it. So
Mm-hmm.
most relationships that are shown to us are short-lived, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh
Mm-hmm.
I want to meet this girl, take her to the club, sleep with her, blah blah blah. But relationship is actually longevity. The intention
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
of relationship that God created is longevity, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
marriage is the best example. But even when we messed up, Jesus came and died to reestablish relationship, not for a month, not
Mm-hmm.
for
Mm-hmm.
as long as you kept doing the right thing. It's for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
And so our relationships are are so short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
They are kind of rooted in this temporary, well, if you don't like this one, get another one.
Mm-hmm. And we're so quick to
Just
do just
boom,
that. We
boom.
cut it off. We don't get married for, the purpose of family and longevity or relationship, lifelong relationships. It's almost like trying on shoes, you know what I'm saying? Until it
It's
starts to hurt
exciting.
my feet. Yeah,
Yeah,
until it starts to hurt my feet, my foot. And, it's almost, it's like when we try it on, it fits good then,
yeah,
but then when we wear it down after a while, it's like, I don't want these no more. I need a new pair. And
yeah.
so we have to really be so mindful of how we're treating relationships. And, a lot of people doing these rebound relationships, and you take this
Yeah.
other person through thinking that you're really engaged in this relationship and it's really what you want, when all the time it's a pastime to get you through until you figure out what it is that you really want. And that's why it's so important that we take the time to build these relationships, build
Yeah.
friendships first so that we can assess capacities, right?
So,
And determine
man,
where we really, really are.
absolutely. So, and again, those frustration relationships. And I'll say this for me, yeah, this is on podcast, so honest, transparent conversation always. I think I need to do a better job of protecting the people around me, right?
Mm-hmm.
In how I manage some of these relationships. Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm slick with it, man. Some stuff pop out of my mouth so quick, and I'll be like, ooh,
Mm-hmm.
ooh, that's spicy. So I have to protect the women around me. I have to protect the men around me as well, right? Because you can say something so hurtful to a man that, you know, oh man, whatever, but that cuts deep. But we don't do a good job of saying, hey, hold up, man. That
Mm-hmm.
really that hurt. So what happens is we get all these wounds and we go, we don't care, we don't treat it, and it gets infected and it spreads and it
Mm-hmm.
now you got poison and toxins
And
and
you treat every person, every woman you meet with that
just
same
like
level of
that.
toxicity because you didn't deal with it. And that was one of the frustrations with, my relationship. And that was the fact that I couldn't get that communication. And I'm like, I know that I'm not perfect. And so there's something I did or said. Well, I need you to tell me when I do it, not 3 months later when I do something that has absolutely
There's
nothing to
nothing to
do
do with it.
with what you're frustrated about and what you're upset about. Because if you don't tell me, I don't know, and I can't fix it. I can't say what I meant versus what I did, or I
Yeah,
can't apologize, or whatever the case may be. So that communication is so key. It's
yeah,
so important. And so, long story short of this whole series of conversations that we've had is the fact that there are relationship frustrations on many levels and
yes,
in
ma'am.
different types of relationships. So we talked about intimate relationships having frustrations, um, friendship relationships having frustrations, dating
Parental,
relationships
yes,
having frustrations, parental relationships having frustrations, just family relationships in general having, and just not knowing how to interact. And there's so many families that are not close, right?
yeah,
They're
yeah,
closer to people who they work with and people that they
yeah,
hang out with than they are the people that are blood,
which is crazy. Yeah,
professional relationships frustration. So there's so many, even in the church, there are
yeah,
frustrations with
yes,
our relationships and the people we serve with and
yeah,
work with and worship with, so there are frustrations everywhere, and so as a believer, as an individual, as a person who's accountable and responsible for who you are, how are you going to show up and help
yeah,
these relationships to be better, to be different?
yeah,
And I think this project, Jahmal, is it really causes us to think about the various types of relationships that we have and how we're nurturing them, how we're, caring for those relationships. Are they healthy? What can we do to make them better? Or even just assess. We start with ourselves, right?
yes, ma'am.
How are we dealing with ourselves? And then how are we dealing with, our siblings or our parents or our spouses or significant others or whatever that may be,
Yeah.
how are we showing up there? What do we need to do to make sure that those relationships are healthy and they're
Healthy.
whole,
So
right?
yes, I love it. I met a young lady here recently, and you know, asked about the book and the website. She sent me a message. She was like, I guess you're a relationship expert and you have the answers. I was like, no, ma'am. The the first thing I said, and if you read through that book, the one of the first things I mentioned is I do not have the answers. The whole intent of this
Absolutely.
book is to have conversation.
And yeah, Jay Honey, you're absolutely, right. She
Oh
said,
yes.
we need more access to tools for effective communication. Sometimes
Yes.
people don't have language to communicate their needs or absolutely,
And
absolutely. And it's all about the environments that we're in, how
mhm,
we're taught to communicate or not. And a lot of our communication is nonverbal, you know.
yes.
And so the thing about it is when you learn better,
Mhm,
grandmama used to say this all the time, when you learn
yes.
better, you do
You
better.
do better.
And the other thing is closed mouths don't get fed. So at the end of
Yes.
the day, you have to learn how to say, I don't know, if nothing else,
Yeah.
or I don't understand, if nothing else, to open that door for the opportunity, for communication. And so we have to, to this point that was just shared in the chat, seek,
Yeah.
the opportunity to learn how to better communicate, right? And in environments and relationships where you feel comfortable in doing so. And that may
Oh,
be, that may be therapy, that may
yeah.
be, that may be
Hmm.
counseling, where you can figure out, because the person or persons that you need to communicate or want to communicate with may not be open for it, but maybe someone can help you in identifying how you can begin to communicate with them.
So one of
Um,
the so when I read that comment, I strongly encourage people. A lot of times you see one party in the relationship saying, "Okay, I need to work on my communication. I want to go learn," and they just
mhm,
go by themselves.
mhm,
And I strongly encourage the other party to come along too, right? Because if one person is
mhm.
learning and you just shut down,
Yeah.
it's not. Or when somebody does say, "Hey, I don't know," what do you mean you don't know? How could you not know?
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
not helping, right? And
Right, right,
it
right, right.
you kind of have to come alongside that person and say, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
get that, but what are you feeling? Right?
Yeah, yeah,
What are you feeling? Like,
yeah.
try to get in, but you have to respect where people are because
True, true. So you have to build up your endurance, right? So depending on what your position is in a situation when it comes to communicating, you have to build up your endurance. So if you're the person who is taking the initiative, right,
mm,
to communicate better or to extend that olive branch, you have to build your endurance and your capacity for what it is that you may or may not get,
yeah.
because you may not get it reciprocated back to you initially. Like I was saying about my mother, I had to continue to pour in and be willing to give that. And so, did it cost me anything to continue to say I love you, or I love you, mom, or
Yeah.
whatever the case? Didn't cost me anything, but it required me making an investment to say it and to be consistent and to have constancy that, at some point in time that it was going to rub off, right?
And so, ooh, I just thought of something. So another thing too, especially with men and women, um, the the setting, the mood, the environment has to be right. So
Mm-hmm.
for most guys, just generically speaking, you sitting there staring in our face like, what's going on? Not gonna work. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, what? I'm good. The game is on. What are you talking about? But throw a grill on
Oh, wait a minute.
outside.
Oh, wait. Hold on. Wait a minute. We can't just dance by that. So here again, that right there. So as a woman, not necessarily just being in your face, but if we ask that question,
Mhm.
what's wrong? Right? Why is that such a hard thing to, and granted, if you're learning
Mhm.
how to
Yeah.
communicate and
So I
there's
was
this
going there.
initiation,
Yeah.
yeah, there's this
Yeah.
initiation to communicate, you know, why do we make it difficult, more
Mhm.
difficult than it needs to be when a person is just saying, hey, I'm here. What's
So
wrong?
I think that's personal for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So what I was gonna recommend was try to find that thing for that guy that loosens him up. Because some
Mm-hmm.
guys just start talking.
Mm-hmm.
So it may not come out
Mm-hmm. Sure.
in poetry, but be
Mm-hmm.
like, man, this steak is really good, or whatever he likes, man. This game is really good, man.
Mm-hmm.
And today was rough. It'll just come out of nowhere. Like today was kind of
Mm-hmm.
rough, man. We
Mm-hmm.
really got beat up at work today, but I gotta
Mm-hmm.
figure out and it'll start coming. And when that,
Mm-hmm.
like you mentioned a couple
Mm-hmm.
sessions ago, when that
Mm-hmm.
conversation starts rolling, do
Mm-hmm.
not interrupt
Let it
because
roll. Let it
the
roll.
minute you
Mm-hmm.
break that line,
Yeah.
it's a wrap,
Yeah.
right?
So we
Um,
have to learn how to approach, right? And
mm,
the approach is going to be different for everybody. So, in other words, and I wanted to kind of pull that out, it's just not asking the question, but it's
yeah,
asking the question in the right environment, or asking the question at the right time,
time
or paying attention to when that person's open and vulnerable to have a
a
conversation
conversation.
or to answer the question, right? And then if that first time you may have to bounce on off of it, right?
Mhm.
Move on to something else.
Right.
The next time a couple of times you have to massage it, and the massaging may be over a course of time. But eventually, if there is consistency with heart and there's
Yeah.
consistency with care, eventually that person
It'll
will get
stick,
to a point, and they still may not give you all of the tea, but they'll
but
give
it'll
you a
start.
quarter cup of it. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? they're not gonna,
Yeah. You're
and they're
not
not gonna give it to you
get a
hot,
little
but they'll
sip.
give you a
Yeah.
quarter of it, just a
You
little
get a little
sip of
sip,
it,
little sippy sip.
for the tea, but they're not going to give the entire thing to you. But it's
Definitely.
here again, it's conversations that I think we need to have, and we need to have them continuously. And there need to be environments where people can, here again, get tools, listen to scenarios. I got story after story.
Mhm.
I have two sons, I have a daughter. All of them are totally different.
Yeah.
The approaches are totally different with each one of them. I had, as a mother, my thing was to learn how each of them function. To this
Yes.
day, they're all different, and
We're
how how I loved on them was different. You know, it
Different.
still was a mother's love, but
Mm.
how I care for them and how I
So
love them now is different. So
that's the
it's,
thing,
yeah.
Miss Moody. I think a lot of people make love about them.
Mm-hmm.
We try to love people the way we want to love them.
Mm-hmm. Now you
And
have to, yeah,
you have
yeah.
to love people the way they need to be loved.
Mm-hmm.
Love
Mm-hmm.
is service. Like
Mm-hmm.
it ain't about you.
I agree. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so
Yeah. You have
that
to
that
meet them where they are. And it goes
am I,
back here again to
yes,
capacity. Goes back to
capacity.
capacity.
Am I
Goes
reading
back to capacity.
this ne can we end with that poem and then let them chew on that for the next session? Because it's
Sure.
11:01.
Yes, yeah, we got to, yeah, because I was just about to wrap up. So yeah, I think you can get that one in real quick and then we're wrapping up.
Let me oh Lord, don't play with me now. Okay, there we go. Um
So while he's prepping this one, so once he finished reading this one, we're out for the night. Thank you so much, you guys that have been rolling with us the last 3 weeks. This is the fourth week. I don't know what we're gonna do if we're coming back in February. It's the love month. It's Black History Month. There's a lot going
yes,
on.
there's a
We'll
lot.
determine. But anyway, for those of you who are in the Chesapeake, Virginia area, Norfolk, Virginia area, don't forget that you need to go to Jahmal's page. Of course, his book launch and book signing is this Saturday. This Saturday. So, of
Yes.
course, I'm here in Dallas, Texas, but I will be in the city. And so, for any of you who are planning to attend, I'd love to see you there as well. Definitely come and support. It's going to be an amazing time. And
Yes, yes.
we'll definitely be sharing some more things coming up here in the near future. But I'm always here on Tuesdays for motivation and conversation. Who knows? Jahmal may be back for a few more sessions and we may come live while I'm there this weekend. But he's going to read
Yes.
this last excerpt. I hope that you have enjoyed us talking about excerpts from The Engineered Muse. And if you have not pre-ordered your copy, make sure you do that. Get on the website and order it at jamalbazil.com. And then also you want to make sure that you stop by if you're local to the area and congratulate and say hello this weekend. All right, Jahmal, you're going to take us out. We're out after this.
Yes, ma'am. If I ever, if ever I have loved, it is now that I know I have never loved like now, ever before. I have avoided any attachment, vulnerability, and emotional entrapment, or seemingly so. The intent to avoid malignant associations, temptations, infatuations, to retain control all the more. But it is an impossibility to humor the scientist inside without attachment, the realist without vulnerability, or the romantic idealist without emotionality. Associations are inevitable, control a fleeting disposition. So much is uncertain, but of this I am sure. If ever I have loved, it is now that I know I have never loved like now, ever before. There is little knowledge acquired without risk. Suffering births great appreciation, and success is sweeter when built honestly. To the passionate, the focus is never common. A message to the ardent, hopeful romantic. It is easier to catch a ray of sunshine than the heart of a woman. If ever I have loved, it is now that I know I have never loved like now, ever before.
Wow, if ever I have loved. There you have it, folks. So listen, you can go back and listen to this multiple times. So whenever we come back, this is where we're going to hang our hat. All right. Thank you so much for being with us for another Tuesday motivation and conversation. Thanks, Jahmal, for hanging out for this series. We'll see where it goes from here.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
who knows? We may jump back in here over the weekend, but if not, I'll see you next Tuesday right back here. Same time, same place for Tuesday motivation and conversation.
Conversation.